It's my really great pleasure to introduce you to Henri de Gerlache, the renowned Belgian explorer and filmmaker. I'm going to make a connection back to Mike Massimino, who many of you will remember if you were here last year, the astronaut, shared with us his changing perspective, what changed for him when he went into space and he looked back at our planet, its fragility and what it needed to sustain ourselves. I think as we begin our afternoon session and we get into our panel discussions, we've got no one better than you, Henri, to give us a similar perspective, albeit from the perspective of Antarctica. And so I'm looking forward to our discussion in a few minutes. But for now, the floor is yours.
Thank
Henri.
you. Thank you. Hello, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very pleased to meet you this afternoon. I am Henri de Gerlache, a filmmaker. So I have the chance to make a lot of films around the world about environmental issues, but also about nature, about history. And now I had the chance to go 3 times in Antarctica. For several reasons, but also to climb the highest point there. It's 5,140 meters, the highest mountains there, the Mount Vincent. We always thinking that Antarctica is a flat continent, but it's very mountainous. And there is it's a real continent, 14 million kilometers square. Continent, and now I am preparing a documentary series about the heroic age, about the history of exploration in Antarctica. It's especially interesting, I think, to understand also the reality of environment today. Because the exploration of Antarctica during what we call heroic age, what's not only a geographical adventure. The man who undertook it was my grandfather, Henri de Gerlache, but also Scott, Amundsen, Shackleton, were not simply explorers. They became, in spite of themselves, witnesses in raw power of nature. Because in those frozen expanses, everything reminds us human fragility. The cold, first of all, was not simple discomfort, but a force that seeps in, exhausts and destroys. Then the wind, capable of erasing tracks, disorienting, isolating, and finally, the silence. The silence immense and almost oppressive, giving these landscapes a sense of being outside of time. These men advanced with determination, sometimes with pride. They traced routes, planted flags, set goals. But very quickly, Antarctica imposed its own rules. It slowed them, blocked them, broke them. It reminded them that humanity, whoever courageous, is not masters of such spaces. The accounts of those expeditions are rich in lessons because they reveal limits. Scott's expedition, tragically, it's perhaps the most striking illustration. Reaching a goal does not mean triumph. Sometimes it simply means measuring at the highest cost the distance between human will and natural reality. And yet, from this trials knowledge, for those explorers did not merely advance, they observed, measured, recorded. They described the eyes, the winds, the shapes on the land, the animal life. They laid the foundation of polar science, which today has become really essential. Over the course of the 20th century, Antarctica's status changed. It gradually ceased to be a territory of conquest and became a space of understanding. With the Antarctic Treaty in 1959, humanity made a rare choice in the world to dedicate an entire continent to peace and scientific research. This choice itself is an act of humility. It acknowledges that some space should not be exploited, that certain limits must be respected. Today, there are scientists all around the world live and work in Antarctica. They no longer seek to conquer this continent, but to listen to it, to understand its mechanism, its balance, its fragility. Because Antarctica is now speaking, and what it tells is deeply concerning. The phenomena of warming are not immediately visible in our daily lives, and yet the consequences in Antarctica are global. Sea level rise, for instance, depends a large part on what is happening there in Antarctica, thousands of kilometers away. Faced with this observation, one question arises: what we have truly understood about our place in the world? The history of Antarctic exploration could be read as a progression from ignorance to knowledge, from audacity to mastery. But another reading is possible, to have a slow learning of humility. At every stage, the history reminds us that nature is not a backdrop. It is not merely a setting in which humanity evolves freely. It's a force, a complex system upon which we entirely depend. In this sense, Antarctica acts as a revealer, where humanity believed it could impose itself, it had to adapt. Where it believed it understood, it continues to discover the extent of its ignorance. And today it's not longer just the explorer who is confronted with these limits, it's the humanity as a whole. The climate change we observe are not abstract phenomena. I've seen it myself in Antarctica. They are results of our activity, our choice, a way of inhabiting the Earth. And Antarctica, through this sensitivity, amplifies this transformation. It reflects back to us a clear image. That's a fragile balance we long took for granted. In this context, science plays an essential role. It allows us to measure, understand, anticipate. But it's not sufficient on its own. Data, however precise, does not automatically lead to awareness. This is where the notion of humility takes on its full meaning. To be humble, face the nature, it's not to renounce action. It is not to yield to fatalism. It is to recognize that our power has limits, that our knowledge is partial, and that our action must be part of a broader understanding of natural balance. Antarctica may be one of the last places where this idea of rethinking our relationship can be practiced on a large scale. A continent without permanent population, without economic exploitation, dedicated to research and cooperation. But this exception is fragile. It depends on political decision, collective will, and constant vigilance. The exploration of Antarctica is not over. It has simply changed its nature. It's not longer about crossing geographical frontiers, but about deepening understanding and perhaps, above all, transforming our perspectives. Because ultimately, the true discovery of Antarctica offer is not that of a distant continent, but that of our own condition. A condition shaped by dependence, limits, but also and mainly responsibility. And if these icy lands, so long perceived as a desert, have something to teach us, it may be this, that the greatness of humanity lies not in its ability to dominate nature, but in its capacity to respect it. Thank you very much, and we'll see a little iceberg melting in Antarctica I've seen in January this year.
Henri, Thank you so much indeed for that inspiring talk.
Thank
I
you
just
to
want
you.
to start by asking you a couple of questions about when you first went to Antarctica. What were your emotions? As you say, you've seen things that no few humans would see, like Mike Massimino when he went into space. When you first got there, what changed in your perspective?
Well, the first thing is that is the experience of silence. It's very interesting because there is no human beings. There are quasi no animals, only on the coast. Because when you are in the continent, there is absolutely no lives, and that's very impressive. And that's the you see also it's about the people who think the Earth is flat.
Yeah,
When you're in Antarctica, you see the little round
yeah,
of the Earth. That's
yeah,
and you really feel uh, a great humility
yeah,
face to nature because you are nothing there.
yeah.
You are nothing without your friends, without cooperation, without. If you are alone in Antarctica, you're almost dead. You know.
And that was something that Mike shared with us last year when he talked about how you go into space, how you achieve that objective. It requires everyone to collaborate and pull together in service of the mission. Is there something like that in Antarctica in your experience there?
Yes, yes, I think so, and that's what's very interesting also in this history of exploration in Antarctica because it was during 20 years, and those explorers who once at this time to plant their flag, but they are obliged to cooperate. They are obliged to say what they have seen there and how to survive. And so the best example of that is Amundsen because he was the first to go to the South Pole on December 1911, and he he learned from the Inuits. He learned to be on the nature, to be on the ice, only with the dogs, but not with a lot of material. Not with he really understand the importance of humility to advance there on this continent.
Now we talked a lot, but both last night and the pre-dinner that we have with the speakers, and again a little bit this morning, about the power of communication to mobilize almost a planet, if you like, around a common concern, a common need to find a solution. I mean, that's what you do with filmmaking. So how do you convey that fragility, those emotions that you're seeing when you're in Antarctica, and mobilize people behind that?
Well, I think that's the power of images of the power of the nature and the nature itself. Well, I don't like to give lessons about the films, but to testimony about the beauty of nature and its fragility. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You also talked a lot in that few minutes that you shared with us about man believing that he or she is mastering nature, but actually nature is what controls us. Do you think through what you do, you can help to convey that message as well, so that we do operate perhaps with more humility than what we have done?
I don't know. I don't know. I'm a little drop in the ocean, but but it has to be done.
Yeah. Well, this is an inspirational talk. Let me close by asking you one final question. What gives you cause for optimism about the future through the work that you do?
Well, I don't know. I'm not really optimist because because what I
You
have
have to
seen.
be. It's early
Yes.
afternoon.
Oh, sorry. But I'm optimist for the nature because the nature will survive us. You
Yeah,
know.
yeah,
But otherwise, I don't know. I think the world is very in a very difficult way
yeah.
today. But the example of Antarctica and this cooperation there in this treaty, it was in 59, and now this treaty has to be revised in 2040. We hope that it will be continued because it's a very exceptional to see there all those bases, all those nationalities. They are obliged to collaborate to survive there, and perhaps for all global Earth tomorrow, it will be an obligation too because of the climate change.
Well,
You know.
a symbol of hope for sure.
Yeah.
Henri, I really want to thank you for taking the time to speak with us today. It's been fabulous to have you. I am absolutely convinced that your message of humility will be taken on by the next panel as they get into the policy
hope so.
substance. But to fire our imagination and our brain neutrons so soon after lunch has been just terrific. Ladies and gentlemen, Henri de Gerlache.
Thank you very much.